Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. I was just pulling up the tweet of people with celebrity conspiracy theories and stuff. We have them
Oh, good.
ready,
I know
however.
that I know that Melody sent replied to my tweet. So I have one, um maybe more, but did you get some on your account?
Nuku? Think that's how you say it.
Yeah. Nuku
He
said he sent you a big
he's
list of
yeah.
silly
There's a
ones.
big list of some some
Yeah.
uh, some sillier ones. Well, some of them are silly, some of them aren't. Um, but we'll get to those later.
Yes.
So do you want to just jump right into the 27 Club?
Yeah, we can. Well, I guess maybe preface it a little bit, but
Well, yeah.
we got on this celebrity tangent on our last stream.
Hmm.
I don't even remember how we started talking about it, but kind of like realized that there's this whole world of celebrity conspiracies that could be fun to talk about.
Yeah, I think we were just talking. We were just kind of like out loud brainstorming of new ideas for the next show, and I had brought up like Tupac, right? The
Oh, that's
Tupac
right. Yeah.
conspiracy,
Yeah.
and then you had mentioned something with Avril Lavigne being a doppelganger or something,
Yeah.
um, and that's kind of like where it started, and from there we just kind of evolved it into this huge celebrity death conspiracy uh, thing. And then
Yeah.
I had brought up the idea of the 27 Club because I think it's really interesting. Um,
Mhm.
but so yeah, that's here we are.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a departure from what we've been doing because we've kind of been focusing on spooky, scary, paranormal
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
And I feel like these celebrity deaths are more, I mean, they're still definitely conspiracies, but less to do with paranormal and more just like, I don't know. It's the actions of people or I
Right,
don't know. It's a step away from what we normally do, I guess.
right. It's a little. It's yeah. I would say it's a step. I would say it's maybe in between what we were doing before the spooky stuff and then the spooky stuff, uh, because it's more like real life stuff, unless paranormal and the supernatural. Um, but it's also some of them are pretty out there.
Yeah.
Some of them are pretty. You have to have a very open mind for some of these conspiracies.
Surprisingly not, I didn't find a lot of celebrity paranormal conspiracies unless you count, think like the biggest one are the lizard people,
Hmm.
but really like nothing outside of that, which I found was surprising to me.
I mean, there's been talks of like Elvis's ghost for the longest time. Um, I mean, I remember hearing about Elvis's ghost at like Graceland and all these places for the longest time,
Hmm.
since I was a kid. But overall, I mean, there's not really too many paranormal things with celebrities. I mean, they'll have, you'll sometimes have people talk about their paranormal experiences. I think Tori Spelling has talked about her paranormal experiences in like a couple of her books. But
Oh, well,
like,
that's a celebrity having
right,
a paranormal
right,
experience versus like
right,
so and so's an alien or
right,
something. Like,
right.
yeah.
Well, there is. I did see one today that was Siri Cruz or Suri, however you say her
Oh,
name, but
yeah,
she's an
okay,
alien.
I did see that one, I did see it.
So
Not surprising though, considering that Tom Cruise is linked to,
Scientology.
yeah, which is all aliens.
Right. It's alien.
So,
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so let's kinda dive into the 27 Club because I think this is a pretty prevalent, celebrity conspiracy, and more specifically, um, around it has to do with the music community
A lot,
or
yeah, a lot of the music
musician
people.
community. Yeah.
So basically, the 27 Club is a group of I'll say artists.
Mhm.
They're usually musicians, but there's been like actors and like people involved in the art community. Usually they're famous people, or somewhat famous at least. They have some sort of fame. And they all die at the age of 27. There's not been any so far. There's not been any like link to the number 27, other than the fact that they all die at the age of 27. So that's why people tend to dismiss it. But I find it odd that people from different generations keep dying at that age. Does it make sense?
Yeah, and when you told me about this one and I started, reading up on it, I was really intrigued by it. But I have to say that there have been quite a number of articles kind of dispelling this
Mm-hmm.
conspiracy theory, and we can kind of go into those after we talk a little bit more about the theory itself. It kind of took the wind out of my sails a little bit about this theory,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that it's still, like I said, it's still a prevalent um, conspiracy theory in the music community, even with those facts and figures kind of leaning towards the untrue side. Um, but yeah, it's well. So I know that there is a very specific group of musicians that kind of originated this 27 club.
For sure.
Do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah. So the people that originated it, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, and Jimi Hendrix, all died at the age of 27. Now, experts that have looked into it, and even myself, you look back on the 70s and stuff, and you're like, man, they lived one hell of a life. Like, I don't know if you guys know too much about Jimi Hendrix, but the dude did a lot of drugs. Like,
I think that's a consistent factor
right,
between a lot of these people.
right. Well, especially with Jimi Hendrix, usually whenever
Yeah.
you see him like in a performance, he has like a bandana on his head. More often than not, he has a crack rock underneath that bandana, so that when he sweats, it just goes straight into his pores.
Really?
Yeah. So like,
Wow.
so like, you know, you can chalk it up more often than not. You can chalk it up to the lifestyle that they lived. Um, and I think that's where a lot of the experts or people that have looked into the 27 Club kind of, that's where they're like, you know what, they lived fast and loose with, you know, their lives, and that's why they died at that age. Um, but then you get people like, uh, you get other people that were like murdered, like Robert Johnson, who was like supposed to be like the godfather of blues, like the founder of blues music in the 1800s. He died at 27. Um,
Mhm.
there's been a lot of other people that have died at the age of 27. Um, I don't know.
Yeah, so I think uh oh, you just said his name. Was it Brian Jones?
Robert
No,
Johnson.
Robert Johnson, that's right. So he was like the earliest popular musician,
Right.
but the amount of time between 1938 and kind of the more recent group of 27 deaths
Hmm.
is quite a number of years. So
Hmm.
it's a little bit surprising to me that there weren't more within that period of time, because that's what 40 years, no,
Yes, roughly
like
30s
30
to yeah,
years.
30 something
Yeah,
like that. Yeah, 30 to
yeah.
40.
So, but they've kind of like linked from Robert Johnson in like 1938, kind of through the years.
Hmm.
What there have been, I don't know. There's like the more popular group, but then when you actually look up other famous people who've died at 27, the list was a lot longer than I expected.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of people on here that I think. So I think that they have to be somewhat famous to be part of the quote unquote club.
Hmm.
So like, Um, Kurt Cobain's on there,
Mhm.
obviously, because he's super famous. Um, Amy Winehouse is another big one. Anton Yelchin, he was in Star Trek and some other stuff. Um, he's on there. I think Jonathan Brandis is on here. And he was in like Sequest, DSV, and the original Stephen King's It movie.
Oh, okay.
Um, but I mean, oh, and
But I think
Mia Zapata too. That's another bigger one.
yeah, so the core group I think was a couple of the people you mentioned. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, um, Jim Morrison, and then who was the last one? Brian Jones, so one of the original founders of the Rolling Stones. I
Hmm.
think those are like the 6 uh I keep saying the main group because these were people who died. I think it was within the span of 2 years. They all died at the
Hmm.
age of 27. And so that's what kind of solidified this conspiracy theory is that, these people, famous people are dying at a very rapid rate all at 27, some of under mysterious circumstances. So it's just kind of like I guess that phenomenon just was like the masses saying, "Hey, we need we need to find a reason.
Right.
Like, why is this happening?" Because I mean, these musicians are people that you know tons of people looked up to, right? They
Hmm.
were influencers and um, inspirations to a lot of people, and so all of these deaths within the span of a very short time period. I think that was hard on a lot of people.
Right. Yeah. Definitely for sure. You know, it's it seems like there are some people that when a celebrity dies or someone famous dies, and it's almost like they can't accept it, so they have to find some reason for it. Like,
Hmm.
we just said that, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, they all did a ton of drugs, right?
Hmm.
And like I said, you can probably, more often than not, you can probably just chalk it up to the lifestyle that they lived, you know? But
Yeah.
as fans, that's a tough pill to swallow that your idol, your favorite musician is gone because of that. There has to be some other reason. Um,
Yeah. And I mean, in some cases, like Amy Winehouse and Kurt Cobain, there were other underlying issues as well,
mhm,
like mental health issues.
right,
I think that are also really hard to deal with as a fan of that musician.
right.
Um, but this group specifically as well, they were all linked somehow. So I know like Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and the guy Brian Jones from the Rolling Stones.
Hmm.
They actually all knew each other.
Hmm.
There were pictures of them together, and that could have just been because they were all famous musicians of the time. But I think, again, that's another indicator to people who think that there is something going on
Right,
that points to like this whole conspiracy aspect.
right. And like I said, they want to find a reason. They want to find a link, and sometimes there's not one, and sometimes you see what you want to see, so you see a link. Um, and I think, like you said, that's where this 27 club came from, and
Mhm.
I think it's interesting to me that now we look back on it as sort of this like conspiracy theory, because there are some people that truly believe in this, like Amy Winehouse, who's a member of the club, expressed that she wanted anything but to die at the age of 27,
Mhm.
you know Kurt Cobain's mom is like, she has a pretty famous quote about, her son after he committed suicide. Um, that, like, he's gone and joined that stupid club. I told him not to join it, stuff like that. So like
Yeah.
they some people truly believe in this, that this is like some kind of phenomenon.
Mhm.
Um, whether it is or it isn't, that's for us to decide, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think phenomenon is a really good word because when you try and figure out what people are trying to get at with the 27 Club, because obviously all these people are linked together because of their age, their status, but like what does it mean? Is it just a natural phenomenon based on their lifestyle? Is it like, you know, I, I hate to bring this up, but since it was very prolific in all of my celebrity research, Illuminati based, like, I don't know, were they involved in something they shouldn't have been? Were they,
Hmm.
like taken out in a
Right.
sense? Were they becoming too powerful or too popular?
Well, we
I
can
don't know.
get
It's just like it's
we
just you can kind of like speculate on like what is the reasoning behind that 27 number? Why is it significant?
right, and that, not to give too much away, but that Illuminati thing is like a huge one. Um,
Yeah.
that's we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, because
Yeah.
that's a pretty prominent one, like you said.
Yeah.
Um,
Another so Tack is saying blood
there you
sacrifice,
go. Yeah, that's
but
it.
like mentioning that another so going back to Robert Johnson, that was sort of the like sub conspiracy behind his death, or part of being the 27 Club is that he sold his soul to the devil
Yeah.
to become this amazing musician. And maybe 27 is the age that, like, maybe your soul is ripe at the age of 27. And so that's when the devil comes to collect. I don't know.
there's an entire supernatural episode about Robert Johnson. Um,
Really? Oh, well, there's the Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? I think is also based on that,
it could be,
on Robert Johnson as well.
but the supernatural episode is he sells his soul to the devil to be able to play blues, or blues guitar, and then,
Mhm.
how it's like a crossroads demon. He sells his soul, and they give him so many years, and so on and so forth. If you've ever watched Supernatural, you probably know what I'm talking about. Um,
Well, yeah, and that is the story. So with Robert Johnson, he um was like a self-proclaimed like, well, not he said he wasn't that great of a musician, and then all of a sudden he disappears for like a week or two. Supposedly he went to some crossroads in Alabama and that
yeah,
like came back and was an amazing guitar player. And so that's what kind of perpetuated the devil aspect um of his death. But
right.
I didn't really come across like any other satanic like sub conspiracies with the rest of the 27 Club.
Hmm.
I don't know if you saw any or not, but I don't know. There's somewhat of a like disconnect between Robert Johnson and kind of the rest of the 27 Club.
Yeah, the only one that I didn't come across any in my research, but the only one I can kind of think of is that Mia Zapata, or Zapata, however you say her name.
Mhm.
Um, so she was murdered, right? Um, and to this day, I don't think they've ever found her killer. Um, but she was murdered, and I think one of the theories is that a satanic cult killed her, or something like that, as like a sacrifice. Um, but other than that, I mean, but the thing is like, anytime there's a murder, like, satanic cult is like, it's thrown out there
Like
as, yeah, it's
number
like,
one
yeah,
conspiracy.
it's like thrown out there as a solution. Well, it's a cult. They were killed. It's a
Yeah.
cult.
Yeah.
So like, who cares?
Yeah.
But yeah,
So
I didn't think it. I didn't see any in my research.
yeah, I mean, again, there could be any number of sub theories to the 27 Club. I'm sure everyone kind of has their own idea of what could be behind the phenomenon.
Hmm.
But yeah, just I'm trying to think of, so we kind of went through like the 70s, and then there is obviously Kurt Cobain in the 90s,
Hmm.
and then Amy Winehouse. When was she was the 2011.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know if there's been like any more recent.
Anton Yelkin, he's probably the most famous that I've ever heard of, like out of the newer group. Um,
Hmm. And he was the actor.
yeah, he was in the Star Trek reboot series. He was in Alpha Dog. He's pretty good sized star,
Yeah.
I would say.
So that's, yeah, I didn't, my research focused mostly on the musicians, so
Mhm.
it's interesting to hear that there have been a number of like other celebrity actors or artists involved in this as well.
Yeah.
Because that kind of plays into the kind of the not that it's not a bummer or anything, but kind of the stats and statistics that have popped up from this conspiracy trying to disprove it.
Hmm.
So like what I found, there's these charts and all this data about, so it's a chart related to death of musicians.
Hmm.
So this doesn't account for any of the actors or other artists that you've seen that
Hmm.
have been added to the list. But so according to these statistics, the actual highest age of death is 56.
Okay.
And like 27 really isn't that high up on the list. And in
Hmm.
fact, 28, the age 28, more musicians have died at the age of 28 than 27. So I don't know, again, if this just covers like how famous do they have to be to get on this list kind of thing.
Uh huh.
It could be, I don't, maybe every published musician, or who knows, but
Honestly, it could be just, like, oh, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, and Janis Joplin all died at the age of 27 within, this period of time. Something's weird
yeah,
here. And then, like, everyone else is, like, they coined the term the 27 Club.
right.
And then
And
everybody else kind of gets, like, retroactively brought into it. You know what I mean?
yeah, and I think that's kind of the issue with this theory is that, like we mentioned, that all of these famous deaths within such a short amount of time
Hmm.
was just really devastating to a lot of people. And even though there are these stats and statistics to disprove it, it's just so ingrained into like pop culture that it's become its own entity
Right.
almost.
Yeah.
So, whether it's true or not, it exists in the minds of a lot of people.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of it has been, it's just been like the myth of the 27 Club. We'll call it a myth, right? I think
Mhm.
we can call it a myth at this point. The myth of the 27 Club has been like brought, it's just kind of like been pushed forward by like Rolling Stone and,
Mhm.
all these like magazines and news outlets. um Anytime someone quote unquote joins the club, it's like it's always like brought up, and
Mhm.
so it kind of like keeps gaining exposure, which kind of gives it, like you said, it kind of gives it a life of its own. um
Mhm.
so I think that's probably one of the bigger reasons that it's still like a relevant thing.
Yeah, I was reading this article that kind of said, based on the statistics, it that specific group of people, during the 70s and 90s and then the early 2000s really should be called, like, what did they say? The tragic six or tragic seven,
Hmm.
where it's not necessarily a phenomenon, but like it was an occurrence,
Hmm.
right? A tragic occurrence. And so I don't know. It's definitely still around, it's still popularized, but in reality, could we say that, it's like a solid conspiracy theory? I don't know. What do you think?
I think as much as I want to it to be like some weird conspiracy that's like, you know, government run and all this crazy stuff is happening, I really think it's just the life that they lived to a certain extent, and it's just a sign of the times. And like I said, people keep getting added to it just because it brings new life to the conspiracy. Um,
Mhm.
I think that I think that people are going to keep dying at the age of 27, and people are going to keep dying at the age of 49, and
Yeah.
people are going to keep dying at the age of everything. And there's no clubs for anything else,
Yeah.
Um, but I think, like I said, I think it's just a sign of the times and a lifestyle that they lived. And it's unfortunate, that we lost so many great people, so many great musicians and artists and stuff,
Mhm.
at such a young age. Who knows what they could have done had they, lived a few more years. Um, but I think I think it's a load of hogwash.
Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting to think about, for me specifically, because I am now past 27. And
So am I.
so kind of like looking at these musicians and like what they accomplished
Yeah.
in their lifetimes, and then realizing, because like when you're younger, you're like, oh, they died at 27. Like obviously you like understand that it's young,
Hmm.
but you don't realize, I think, the full impact of it until you reach that age and you're like, wow, like it's really young, and it's really just the beginning of their lives.
Uh, you know what's crazy is like I think about this often. I'm a huge baseball fan, right? And the minimum age to join the MLB is like 17 or 18, right? Like they can get drafted right out of high school.
Mhm.
And to see some of these people get like million dollar contracts, and I'm over here at age 30, like
Yeah.
like what am I doing with my life? First of all, and then you
Yeah.
see like people that they they die way too young, and you're
Mhm.
just like, wow, this really sucks that this happened, you know
Mhm. Yeah. It's yeah, you gain a different perspective when you're older, for sure. Which
yeah.
I don't know, for better or worse,
Yeah.
it just happens. But I don't know. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to say about the 27 Club specifically, but since we're talking about age, I actually have an age-related conspiracy that was
Okay,
on my list.
let's go, let's rock and
So,
roll.
we ready to jump into kind of a few odd other celebrity conspiracy theories?
I am ready.
Okay, so speaking of age, a goofy conspiracy theory that I came across had to deal with Lorde, the
Okay.
musician. And so she won this huge award. What is the music award? Is it
Grammy.
not Grammy? Yeah, at age what, 17, 18? And
Okay.
so the whole conspiracy is that she's not actually 17, or wasn't actually 17. She's actually a woman in her like late 30s, early 40s.
Okay.
And because we're like, wow, Lorde has accomplished so much. She got discovered so early. She's won a Grammy. Like, this is crazy. And so basically, the most logical reaction to that is to say, wait, maybe she's not actually 17. Maybe she's actually early 40s. Um,
Okay.
so I don't know. It's this is like one of those goofy like one-off
Hmm.
like conspiracy theories because you can't really there's nowhere to go with it exactly except people just saying, "Hey, she's actually 45." But I don't know. And they pick very specific pictures where the lighting isn't great and
Hmm.
she like looks a little bit older.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I thought that was kind of a goofy one.
There's a lot of really goofy ones. One that is, I think, is kind of goofy is so John Lennon got shot, right?
Mhm.
So the conspiracy theory is that Stephen King, the author,
Oh,
shot
yeah.
him.
What is that? That is one of the most ridiculous ones because every single aspect of it is completely like it just
Bonkers.
isn't plausible because what? It's basically the government like gave Stephen King, the novelist, the okay to like kill. It's just so weird. Like I don't
It,
understand
so
it.
basically, the whole theory is that the CIA and the government, the U.S. government, was putting uh, code words in like the newspaper and magazines and stuff, like triggers,
Mm. Yeah.
and he's like a sleeper agent.
Yeah.
And
Oh wait, was okay, so I didn't know he was actually a sleeper agent. I thought they just like told him he could kill John Lennon.
I
Or not John Lennon. Was
Yeah,
yeah.
John Lennon, yeah.
Yeah.
And so then he did it, and then they had somebody else take the fall for it, and
Yeah.
it's just
It's
insane.
really strange.
It's
Well, there's another sleeper agent theory about Miley Cyrus
I saw that too.
that yeah, that all of because it was all of the crazy stuff she did was during the Obama era, and so supposedly her mission was to distract from like more important world issues that were going on.
Yes.
But to be fair, the Miley Cyrus turnaround was really crazy and kind of suspicious. I This is not really a conspiracy theory; it's more of a joke. But I remember reading somewhere that um, someone was claiming that Miley Cyrus had been possessed by some sort of demon. And because she goes from like the Montana Miley Cyrus to this like crazy like a complete 180, right?
Hmm.
Of like
Right.
personality and music and everything else, which is why that kind of plays into the sleeper agent conspiracy. But then like a few years later, she becomes more like not normal, but basically goes back to the way that she was. And so I don't know. I guess the demon left. I think they were saying the demon went into Katy Perry because she got really weird for like a year or so. So
Sure.
I don't know. It's just people like come up with the weirdest theories behind this stuff.
So that whole like this artist is a sleeper agent and stuff like that to distract America from the rest of, everything else that we're doing as like a government, all this shady stuff we're doing. That's not like a new thing. That's one of the conspiracies behind Tupac's death, actually, is that he was um, trying to, the government was trying to control what we were thinking and like intaking as far as media goes, and he was like going against it. So the Illuminati killed him. That's like one of the big conspiracy theories regarding Tupac as well. So that's like
Well,
everything.
yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Look, George Bush payroll is Britney Spears. There you go. There's another one too.
Wait, George Bush what? Britney Spears?
Britney Spears was like the Miley Cyrus of the George Bush
Oh,
administration.
yeah. Well, and so like when you start to look at all of that, it's like, well, I don't know. Maybe it's true. They do. I don't know. So Freda in my stream is saying that a lot of celebrities tend to go a little bit mental. I mean, because they're in the spotlight so much.
Mhm.
And it's kind of true. Like, obviously, that's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure. So, if you want to think about it logically, sure, maybe some might have a mental breakdown. If you want to believe in the conspiracy theories, they're actually sleeper agents.
Or yeah, they're sleeper agents hired to kill John Lennon.
Right.
That's how it is.
Yeah. So,
Um,
what are some other ones that I saw? So so I have one. This one, well, I don't. That one goes a little bit deeper. Maybe we should start with like the easy stuff, and then if we have time, we can dive into some more of the intricate ones. But so here's another like little one-off
okay.
conspiracy. So Lindsay Lohan in The Parent Trap. Supposedly, she actually did have a twin and that was the twin in the movie, who died tragically. And Disney didn't want this whole big thing about it. And so they basically like suppressed this news. And that's why Lindsay Lohan now like went through that long period of like being really messed up because of this tragic event that happened of her twin dying.
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
I mean, I would probably be upset if my twin died as well,
Hmm.
but I think that that's a ridiculous thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's a little another. I mean, it's not goofy. It's kind of sad to think about,
right,
but it is not a whole lot to it, but
right. I mean, there's also that's so weird to me that Katy Perry is actually John Benet Ramsey.
yeah. So this one, I don't know. This one kind of gives me like bad vibes, just because of like everything around the original case and the original death.
Hmm.
It's just like it just doesn't feel good. Like I don't
I
know
Yeah, I
why people
agree.
would create this theory.
I agree. I read that and I was like, what? That's what you came up with? I guess. But yeah, I agree. It's when you get into like child murder, like conspiracies, that's 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 a line I really don't want to go across.
Yeah. I mean, because basically the theory is just comparing their likeness.
It's just their photos, yeah.
Yeah, because when you start like actually diving into it, what Katy Perry was born 5 years before or something anyway.
Something like that, 5 or
So
6, yeah.
I mean, I guess if you really want to twist it, you could talk about like, you know, forged birth certificates and stuff. But like why would you want to dig that deep into something that's like, kind of well, not very tasteful.
But not only that, okay, so all right, fine. What do you get out of it? All right?
Yeah.
What is the end goal for that conspiracy? That
Yeah.
John Benet Ramsey didn't it wasn't murdered? Like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Like, what does that
Yeah.
solve? What does that solve for anybody? That's not going to put anybody's mind at rest.
Right.
Um, I don't know.
I don't know again if it's just people thinking, man, this is a tragedy that occurred. I don't know how to mentally process it. I'm gonna make something up that makes me feel better,
Mhm.
or if it's just people going like, "Hey, Katy Perry looks like this." Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what aspect it kind of stems from, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's nothing else that you can gain out of, even if it was correct, even if it was 100% right, there's nothing that you would gain out of it, other
yeah,
than a solved murder mystery. But like, okay, but
yeah.
why, you know? Um,
Yeah. So I have someone asking on stream who John Benet Ramsey is.
okay,
So she was I don't remember how old she was, but she was a child.
yeah,
Um uh uh what I just completely blanked.
beauty
She
queen,
was beauty pageant, that's right.
yeah,
Beauty pageant winner. She was, pretty famous and very loved. Like she was just this little angel of a child, and so that's what made this like so horrific, is that she was murdered.
mhm.
And so it's just a really like sensitive case. It's a really terrible terrible
Yeah,
story.
it's really rough. There's I think it's ID is the channel. They do like they have a series of shows called American Murder Mystery. Um, and there's one on John Benet Ramsey, and they're really good about like being respectful and going over just the facts of what's going on and what happened and stuff. So I would say if you really want to know, um, watch it. It's as a
It's not
father, it
good.
really is hard for me to watch someone so
Yeah.
young like be hurt in such a horrible way.
Yeah.
Just it's rough.
Yeah. I don't recommend it, but if you feel the need to know, yeah. But yeah, I mean that's the only thing that, I mean, that theory in particular just kind of like hit a bad nerve with me, I
Yeah.
think. That's kind of the only one on this list that I kind of felt that way about, because I feel like most of them, like we said, are either goofy or, I mean, obviously the 27 Club, those are, tragic deaths, but
Yeah.
um it's just the everything around the anyway, you guys know what I mean.
Yeah, I
I'm
got
not
you.
gonna dwell on it.
I got you.
Yeah.
Um,
Um
are there any more that you can think of that are kind of like one-offs like that?
um I don't really, not really. I think that I have like one or two that go a little bit deeper.
Okay.
So I don't know if you have any more one-off.
Not really. Um, the rest of them are they're like one-offs, but they're not. It would take a lot longer to explain the one-off, if that makes sense. Um,
Gotcha.
you know, but
Yeah.
they're not. Yeah, that's about the way I can
I
explain it.
kind of, yeah, I kind of feel like that might be one of the conspiracies I have. And I can try and talk about it in the most concise way possible. But did you come across the David Bowie and Kanye West conspiracy?
No.
Oh, okay. So I did some reading on it, but there are a lot of pieces of evidence that I'll probably need to try and reference.
Okay.
But basically, the conspiracy goes that um, David Bowie kind of like prophesized like Kanye West's fame, or kind of like pass, I don't know, maybe not pass the torch, but um so one of David Bowie's albums, I believe it was the first Ziggy Stardust album. Which one
Okay.
was that? Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
Okay.
Basically, it's stating that this album has evidence of the rise of Kanye West. And so that Kanye West, this Starman is like this big symbol on the album,
Mm.
and a lot of the songs are mention the Starman, and basically Kanye is that Starman. So
Okay.
like there's all these references in the album. If you look at the album cover, and I can pull this up on screen real quick. It's Ziggy Stardust, who is um, David Bowie's like alter ego, but
Okay.
he's standing on this street, and really it's just him and one other like very prominent feature, and he's standing under a sign
There's
that
K
says
West.
K West. Yeah, hold on, I'll pull it up.
Hey, but
So
what what if Kanye West's parents were just big David Bowie slash Ziggy Stardust fans?
I mean, maybe, but that's the conspiracy, is that this album prophesies the like stardom of Kanye West. And there's like a few other things that link it together from other albums.
Mm.
David Bowie's last album has a few nods or supposed nods to Kanye West. And when David Bowie passed away, one of the first things that happened was I think Kanye West was like the first person to mention it on Twitter or something.
Hmm.
And so I don't know, it's kind of interesting. If you
Yeah.
guys there are more references to it that are pretty interesting, but I just thought it was it might kind of side on the goofy end of the spectrum as far as the theories go, but just something to think about.
I mean, it's not as goofy as like Pizzagate.
Well, yeah, that
Uh,
one's
that one's out there, man.
yeah.
That one is out there. Uh, I really don't even want to talk about that one because that one's dumb. That one's dumb. That's all I'll say. That's dumb.
Yeah, and a little bit like politically
Yeah,
motivated,
yeah,
so
for
maybe
sure.
not a great
A little bit politically,
discussion
a
point.
little bit politically motivated. It's like entirely politically motivated.
Okay, well, yeah.
um, okay. So, what are some big ones that you want to like? Some bigger ones that you want to jump into? Um, do you want to talk about the big ones, the big ones? Like we can go in depth on Tupac if you want. I got it. I'm ready. Um,
Okay.
we can go in depth on Kurt Cobain if you want. Uh, Natalie Wood is a big one, although that one's less of like a hoax, like a death hoax. It's more like who the hell killed her. Um,
Yeah.
there's also American Murder Mystery of Natalie Wood. If you want to check it out, super interesting. Um, but what are some bigger ones that you want to go into?
So the Kurt Cobain one, I'm slightly familiar with it.
Okay.
I know that one has that one does go pretty deep. The I'm most familiar with the Avril Lavigne conspiracy. So maybe if you want to talk about a couple of the deeper conspiracies that you enjoy, then we can. Well, let's just start with yours. You choose. I would like to hear more about the Kurt Cobain one, like I said, because I kind of touched on that on some of my research. But I know that you know a lot about the Tupac one.
I do
So
know about the Tupac one.
yeah.
Um, so with the Kurt Cobain one, it's widely believed that he did not commit suicide, that he was actually murdered. Um, most people, I think, tend to believe it was Courtney Love, is that her name?
Yeah,
Um,
his wife.
yeah, a lot of people reference the fact that when they found him, when they did the toxicology report on him, he had so much heroin in his system that he shouldn't have been able to hold a gun,
Hmm.
much less, fire it. Um, there's also, I think, what was it? I can't remember if it was in the documentary, or I guess it's the documentary that's soaked in bleach. Can't remember if it was in there or not, but there was something that said that like the angle of the gun and how like how he was positioned and all that and stuff, like there was no way that he could have like held it and fired it, I guess is the
Mhm.
best way to put it.
Yeah.
um so like I said, a lot of people think that Courtney Love killed him. um you know, some people think that like it was all like this big like plan, that it was like he was like helped to commit suicide. um and so there's basically that.
Yeah, well, Courtney Love, I mean, I was much younger. I was younger in the early 90s,
Mhm.
but I mean, I remember even as a kid, like, you know, Courtney Love just like being hated, just being like this villain. And I guess that's where I think there were other things going on in her relationship with Kurt Cobain that kind of like started that dislike, but I think that um his death definitely kind of sealed the deal on all of that because of all those conspiracy theories around it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I truthfully don't know that much about Courtney Love herself, other than the fact that she was like hated by a lot of people.
Mhm.
I'm sure at one point she was probably the most hated woman in America until Casey Anthony took that crown. Um,
Mm.
but you know, there's people that have said that like like I said, there's no way that he could have done it. That he had too much heroin in his system, he couldn't even hold it. Um, these are like private investigators that are saying it, not just like random Joe schmoes on the internet. Um,
Mhm.
you know, even like I said, there's a documentary called, I think it's called Soaked in Bleach, and it like deep dives into the conspiracy that he was actually murdered, um, or that he was at least, at the very least, assisted in his suicide, by Courtney Love or someone close to him.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched it in a very long time, but what I do remember of it, it's very good. If you're into conspiracy theories, um, which I am, so I think it's good. 2 thumbs up.
Mhm. Mhm.
Have you watched
It,
it?
it, I haven't watched it,
Okay.
no.
Okay.
Um, but it's just kind of depressing thing to think about, but you know, obviously we kind of touched on Kurt Cobain's mental state.
Hmm.
I was reading today that he also was dealing with Crohn's disease, that he was in a lot of pain a lot of the time. And it's just, it I don't know, but with drugs involved and other stuff happening, you know, I don't know. I don't want to like maybe I shouldn't go into that.
You
It's
know,
I
go ahead.
the thought that it might have been out of love kind of comes to mind, like you're like on drugs, your loved one is constantly hurting. It's kind of like the same like moral dilemma of if you have a loved one in the hospital and they're on life support, like
Right.
do you pull the plug,
Right.
or like it's I think that it's a different answer for different people.
Hmm.
So I think that's a very wide question, a hard question to ask, but
Hmm.
um I don't know. It's kind of a sad thing to think about, but that's kind of what comes to my mind when I think about like assisted suicide. Less of a malicious sort of act, but maybe more of a benevolent act. I don't know.
Right. And I
Maybe
mean,
maybe that's controversial. I'm not sure.
I don't think so. I mean, talking about assisted suicide, that's a rough topic, because that's a very polarizing topic.
Yeah. Like
Um,
I said, everyone's going to have a different opinion on it.
right. And, I think that, like we said with the 27 Club earlier, this entire conspiracy theory could very well be just a bunch of people not able to accept the fact that Kurt was depressed, you know,
Mhm.
not able to accept the fact that he did this because he was severely mentally unstable, and maybe the drugs didn't help. The drugs probably didn't help, you know,
Mhm.
didn't help his mental
Yeah.
state, and this is the outcome. So they can't accept it, so they have to find a reason for it. Um,
Mhm.
which, like I said, I think that's where a lot of these conspiracy theories come from. People not able to accept the fact that their favorite musician or actor or whoever is gone, and they try and find a reason for it.
Yeah.
But
It's I mean, death and uh mourning and loss are really tough topics to deal with, and
mhm,
so there are all sorts of ways that people deal with it.
yeah, yeah, I think if this conspiracy theory interests you, though, you should probably watch the Soaked in Bleach documentary. Um,
Yeah, yeah, I
it
think that's something that I would like to see.
it goes in deep, and it talks about more of like the the scene when they arrived and stuff, and like how everything looked, and some of it some of it just does not add up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and so but the thing is, all right, so the thing with a lot of these conspiracy theories is that it's easy for us to say this doesn't add up looking back. Um,
Yeah.
it's easy for us to say, okay, well, this is how the scene looked when they got there. This doesn't make sense with what the outcome was that they told us it was. But back then, you know, they it probably didn't know any better.
Yeah. Or I mean, it's all it's all secondhand information,
Right,
right? I mean, because this information is going through like 3 or 4 channels before it even reaches the main public, right? So
right,
there's the people who were there like during the actual event, and then the people who were there post event, police, that kind of stuff. There are reporters reporting on what the police said that are then like it's
it's
like a
one
game of
giant game of telephone.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and so, it's just you kinda have to take everything with a grain of salt
Hmm.
and, um, you know, come up with your own conclusion, I guess, but
Right.
that's entirely the where the existence of conspiracy theories come from, right? Because you don't ever have all the facts. There's always vague information and,
Hmm.
room for interpretation.
Right. And sometimes that lack of facts is on purpose to get you to swing to their side a little bit, to
Yeah.
start believing in the conspiracy theory. And sometimes they just don't have the information to give out. Um,
Yeah.
so who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
But yeah, I think the Kurt Cobain theory is um it's one of the sadder ones.
Yeah, I agree. Either way, it's sad. Um,
Yeah.
whether he was just severely mentally depressed and actually did commit suicide, or he was murdered. Either way, we lost a great musician,
Hmm.
and so it is what it is, I suppose. Can't go back now.
Yep.
Um, do you want to talk about yours, and then if we have time, we can talk about Tupac?
Sure, yeah.
Okay.
So I want to talk about the Avril conspiracy.
Okay.
So basically this one has to do with Avril Lavigne being supposedly Avril Lavigne died. and was replaced by her. Oh shoot, it's been a while. By a body double named Melissa. And so this is a body double who was hired while Avril Lavigne was alive to do, I don't know, whatever body doubles do. If they have to, I don't know, be a decoy for the paparazzi or
Right.
whatever else. I don't know. The life of celebrities, right? Um, but basically, after Avril Lavigne died, and I'll have to look back into the details of it, but I believe her death in this theory was supposedly a suicide because she was very close to her grandfather, who passed away. And so there's a period of time where she became very depressed. And I think this is actually something that happened. I mean, her grandpa did die. She became very depressed. And so she kind of stepped out of the spotlight for a little bit. And that's where conspiracy theorists say, during that time period when we didn't really see a whole lot of Avril, that's when her suicide supposedly occurred.
Hmm.
And in order to keep her alive, essentially in an image, her body double Melissa took over for her. So she became the new Avril Lavigne essentially.
Hmm.
And so that time period where she stepped out of the spotlight is sort of one indicator for conspiracy theorists. The second one is when she came out of that period, that depressed period, she had changed quite a bit. Her image was a lot different. Her music was a lot different. I think that there are even song clips comparing like the music pre-suicide versus post,
Right.
and like picking out all of the differences in the way that her voice sounds. So it's like a very elaborate sort of conspiracy, but supposedly Melissa has just been masquerading as Avril Lavigne even up until today, and has just kind of taken the Avril Lavigne mantle. Um, Obviously, it's been denied by the supposed Avril Lavigne.
Hmm. Obviously.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of evidence, even like present day evidence of interviews with Avril Lavigne where it could point to the fact that this really is a true conspiracy or something like that. So
Hmm.
I don't know. It's it's whatever. As opposed to the Kurt Cobain conspiracy theory where he actually did die and people want to kind of create these theories around it.
Hmm.
There are surprisingly a lot of theories related to celebrities dying and being replaced.
That's
There's
true.
another one that happened around Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney's a
Uh,
huge one. Yeah.
yeah, that was another one where Paul McCartney actually died and they replaced him with someone else. So I don't know what it is with people in like celebrity replacement theories, but there are a lot of them.
Yeah. It's usually like one of three camps usually when it's around someone's like a celebrity's death. It's they didn't commit suicide, they were murdered,
Mhm.
they were replaced by a body double, or they faked their death. Like those are
Yeah,
like the three main like talking points when people talk about celebrity deaths.
yeah,
Um and it that I mean everybody, Tupac, Avril Lavigne, Paul McCartney, I think Princess Diana is another one that they said like she like it was a big hoax or like something like that.
yeah,
Um, Elvis, he's been said to be alive for the longest freaking.
yeah. But
Um,
but these theories, what is crazy to me is like the level of detail that people go to, especially like again, referencing the Avril Lavigne story because I'm the most familiar with it. But Pirate Monkey just mentioned in the chat, like people are like notice different marks on her body, like maybe there are freckles or something that like
Right.
weren't there prior and now they're here, or vice versa, or the shape of her body or face. I don't know. It's just like all of these tiny little details to make the theory more plausible, I guess.
Yeah, and the crazy thing about that is like if you ever talk to like a conspiracy theorist or like watch them when they do that stuff, they'll like they'll take a still image of, let's say, like Avril Lavigne in like 2000 and whenever she was like big, right? Skater girl time.
Yeah.
And then they'll take a static image of her now and they like super like zoom in on it and they're like, "Well, see, like
Yeah.
she has one hair follicle here and in this picture it's not there." And it's
Yeah,
like, okay,
I'm gonna bring it up because I think I know the exact so it's it's this one.
it's
So they've got
just
like 2003 versus 2013, and like the evidence given here like isn't, I don't, maybe this is being facetious. I don't know.
I love the
But
tan one.
okay, yeah, okay, this is, never mind. This is obviously not a, but that's the first one I saw. So like, but there are actually like Tin Man said, pictures like legitimately comparing, you know, pre pictures and post pictures. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, you're absolutely right. It's
That
true.
one was dumb.
Like they do that stuff, they're like, "Oh, well look, she has a scar. She has like a I don't know, a pimple here on this picture, but it's not here in this picture." Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Like who cares? like
Yeah,
like
yeah.
who cares?
I
Um
mean, plastic surgery exists, weight gain, weight loss exists. Uh,
Changing diet will change the
gr-
amount of acne you have. You
yeah,
know,
or just growing up. If you're like in your late teens, early 20s, I look, I look a lot different than I did in like my early 20s. So even like, 5 or 6 years can make a big change. I don't know.
yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's like I said, some of it's just like the most ridiculous comparisons that they find.
Yeah.
Um, okay, do you want to keep going, or do you want to call it for there and we can do like a part two next time?
Yeah, I mean, why don't we call it? I think that we kind of we explored the 27 Club uh to kick it off, and then sort of
Mhm.
went into some goofy conspiracies, some one-off conspiracies, and then went a little bit deeper into the celebrity conspiracy rabbit hole. But yeah, I think there's still a lot that we haven't gotten to yet, so I
Yeah,
would definitely be up for a part 2.
yeah. I there's some really weird ones out there. E- like I said, I really enjoy the Tupac conspiracy. Not that I subscribe to it. I don't think it's real. I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
really weird kind of anecdotal evidence. Um, and then Natalie Wood, that one is that one's really weird. I gotta say, Natalie Wood is really really weird.
So
Um,
Natalie Wood, okay, so an actor
yes,
in the 1930s, it looks like.
yeah, she was in the Miracle on 34th Street. She was a child
Okay,
actress.
gotcha. Yo,
Um,
yeah, the first Google search result is the mystery surrounding Natalie Wood's death.
it's
So,
it gets interesting. Um,
okay.
I'll
Yeah,
definitely
what?
say that.
I'd totally be up for a, episode 2 of celebrity stuff.
Okay, well then 2 weeks from now will be the 26th. That's I guess that would be the week or the Tuesday before Thanksgiving. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Well, that'll be a tentative date. I don't know if
Okay.
we'll make sure that
Tentatively.
that works for everybody. Um,
Okay.
Conspiracy on the Chris Benoit murders.
Yeah, what
Dude,
is? Oh, wrestler.
and that one's really rough too. You know, that one's really rough.
That's close to home for you, huh?
That's that one's really rough. Um,
I
although
don't want if it's kind of like I don't know if it's like really gruesome or kind of like I don't know. I'll leave it up to you. I don't know anything about it, so
uh, you know, you know what? I'm gonna say I'm gonna pass on Chris Benoit. Um, you know what? The WWE hasn't mentioned his name for so since that happened, and I think that I am going to give his family the respect that they deserve and not do it.
okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Okay.
But there are a lot of other conspiracy theories that we have left to talk about, and I want to say that during this episode, we also had a few other people talking in chat about um, prophecies,
Mm-hmm.
old timey prophecies, and soothsayers,
Mm-hmm.
which might be an interesting next episode or future episode
I'm down for
about
that.
like soothsayers from I don't know what how far back was it? I don't know. I'm just gonna say old timey as a catch-all, but basically prophesizing things that have supposedly come true.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's something that I whole lot about. So might make for a good future episode.
I agree. That would be really interesting to talk about, I think. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, we can definitely talk about that some more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think, like I said, the 26th will be a tentative next date
Mhm.
for a future episode.
Yep. Alrighty.
I have nothing else.
Yep. That's all I got.
All right. I appreciate everybody for coming out tonight, and I appreciate you, Biscuit, for being my co-host on this
I
lovely
appreciate
talk show.
you, Tin
Lovely
Man.
talk show.
You're my wonderful for TinBiscuit, and I enjoyed this one. I
I did
had a
too.
lot of fun with fun with this one.
Just you wait, because it's gonna get even crazier next time.
I am excited. It'll
I'm
be great.
excited too.
All right. Well, have a good night, and I'm for the next episode.
All right, have a good one, guys.